So hey guys, welcome back. We have another one for you, and today we have a great guest on the phone. Josh has been with us before. Josh Slatten is the president, the CEO, the CFO of the Billy the Kid Coalition. He has got many hats over there, and he's doing a great job. You hear me all the time recommending that you join because I love the group. He's got some really cool stuff, and we'll talk about it in a minute. Before we do that, I want to thank my friends over at Tombstone Epitaph, one of Arizona's longest running newspapers at tombstoneepitaph.com. I urge you to subscribe and get the epitaph delivered right to your door. Today's podcast is actually about a epitaph article. So if you want to read the whole article and learn about it, I urge you to join, actually subscribe and get the epitaph delivered to your door. Also want to thank my friends at the Wild West History Association, my second family at the Wild West History Association at wildwesthistory.org. We have Roundup 2024 coming up at Fort Smith, Arkansas, and they're going to be taking tours of the new U.S. Marshals Museum, and they're going to be going all over Fort Smith. And if you can't make it to Fort Smith, then just join. They've got a new digital membership for $60. Then you get to become a member, and then you get the journal for free, but you get it emailed to your phone or to your mobile device. I watch it on my Mac, and not watch it, but read it on my Mac, and I have it saved as a document, and it works out fantastic that I can go back and just read it at any time. But that's at the Wild West History Association at wildwesthistory.org. Also, my friends at the BTK Coalition, all things Billy the Kid. You can find them at btkcoalition.com. That's Billy the Kid, btkcoalition.com. Now, I urge you to join that group. It's about $35 a year. You get the journal. They have their own journal, which is really crazy great. Some beautiful artwork and great artwork and drawings on the inside, as well as photos and some fantastic articles. It's going to run you, like I said, about $35, but they got a store, and their store is jam-packed full of Billy the Kid swag. So if you want some hoodies or a t-shirt or mugs, whatever's going on at the store, and you want to support and show your love for Billy the Kid, you can do that at the btkcoalition.com. So like I said, we have Josh Slatten on the phone. Josh has been with us before. Josh wrote an article called "It Looked Like a Hideout. Billy the Kid's proposed ranch was nothing but a cave." It's in the Tombstone Epitaph, April 2024, the number 4 edition. But April 2024, it's the number 4 edition for 2024, and it's right on the front page. And it grabs me, and it's bold. And I wanted to call Josh and talk about it. Welcome, sir. How are you?
I'm great, Mike. Good to be with you today. Thanks for having me back, man.
Yeah. So let's talk about this, because when I look at the cover photo, it literally is just a place in the side of a sandstone, not sandstone, but maybe loose dirt or I don't know the soil, but it's just a cave. And Billy the Kid at one point said, "This is going to be my ranch." Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's really all it is. If you don't even know what you're looking for, it's very hard to come by, which is why, Billy the Kid and other like-minded individuals at the time used it kind of as a hideout, just like the title of the article says. So, yeah, I mean, if you're looking across it, and depending on the direction you're looking, you can look right over it, not even realize it's there. It's not till you actually go south of the caves. There was at Billy's time 7 of them total. Of course, there's quite a few of them have caved in since then. But if you're looking at it from the south, that's what allows you to be able to see the actual structure of the caves. But otherwise, yeah, it looks like a prairie. It's really hard to find, which again is why it made it so appealing at the time for guys like Billy and others that were using it as a kind of a way station for stolen livestock and such. So it's a very unique little part of New Mexico that is unknown to a lot of people other than just the locals of Portales. But yeah, it's a very, very cool place, and I was really excited when I came across that image that's on the cover of the epitaph, because that was a never before published photo of part of the cave. I would guess it was probably taken around 1900 if I was going to guess. So yeah, it's cool stuff, man. Like I said, this is a never before seen photo, and I was pretty excited to debut it on the epitaph.
But you'd mentioned in there that in the article, and literally in the first sentence, that buffalo hunters called the place Los Potales, or the porch.
Yes.
And so Billy, was his goal then to eventually, when things got quiet, that this was going to become his ranch, or was it something that he had seen at one time and said, "Oh my God, like that's my spot"?
Sure. We have two references where Billy used where he talked about this. He actually talked about it in the Las Vegas Gazette. So when he was in Las Vegas in jail waiting to go to Santa Fe, he gave an interview to the Gazette December 28th of 1880, and he told the editor about this location, and he made reference to him and Charlie Bowdry having desires to use it as a way station. So at the time when Billy was giving this interview and when he was expressing interest in it, there was a road that ran basically from the Texas Panhandle, what we now know as Lubbock, and it ran through Billy the Kid's Cave, this location, on through Stinking Spring, which again has its own claim to fame as far as Billy history goes, and then on into Fort Sumner. So this was a very well-traveled route, and if Billy was able to stake his claim to this, had he used it correctly and maybe stayed on the right side of the law, this could have been a pretty profitable venture for him and Charlie. Of course, we know, unfortunately, Charlie was killed about a week before Billy gave that interview, so that obviously didn't happen, and Billy lived another 6-8 months after that. But yeah, at the time, Billy referenced this in the Las Vegas Gazette. And he also mentioned it in a letter to Lew Wallace when he was kind of pleading his case to Lew Wallace. He talked about this location. So it definitely had a soft spot for Billy. We've got a couple historical references also that place Billy at this cave. There's also, depending on which version you want to go with, there's some of the locals that say he actually came from this location the morning before he was killed, July 14th, 1881. So yeah, it was definitely a spot for Billy that he considered dear to him, and I think that's why it's so fascinating when you get to go there and actually see it.
Well, there was a gentleman that showed up in your article that I hadn't really read about before, and his name was John Meadows. Tell us a little bit about John Meadows.
Yeah, John Meadows is an interesting guy. John Meadows falls under the category of a couple other people in Billy the Kid history that you want to believe them because they tell such fascinating stories, yet you still have to kind of second guess a lot of the things they say because you just don't find them mentioned in any other sources other than their own. But yeah, John Meadows there's a book about John Meadows' accounts, and John Meadows was a good friend of Billy and Pat's, Pat Garrett that is. And John Meadows makes the claim that Billy actually hired him in Fort Sumner in 1880 to help push about 45 head of cattle over to Portales, or Billy the Kid's Cave, because Billy intended on setting up a ranch there. So he met John Meadows. They pushed the livestock over to the cave, and Meadows actually stayed there for 10 days waiting for Billy to return with word of what they were going to do with the herd and whether or not they were going to actually establish a place there or not. Billy ended up selling, according to Meadows, the cattle for, I believe, $420. Gave Meadows his cut of that, and then they kind of went their separate ways for the time. But yeah, Meadows definitely helps tie this location in for us. And, I do tend to give Meadows a little bit of credit and go ahead and assume that he's probably being accurate on this account. Just because when he was telling these stories in the 1920s and 1930s, a lot of this information had not really gotten out yet. I don't really believe that he would have had access to the Las Vegas Gazette article or even Lew Wallace's letter where it's referenced. So I think there's some credibility to it that this was definitely something Billy was interested in.
You've also made mention in your article about Pat Garrett. And Pat Garrett is somebody that actually saw the cave, correct?
Yeah, Pat Garrett actually talks about it and gives a really good description of it. I mentioned it in the article in the epitaph. But Pat Garrett gives a good mention of it as far as the geographic location, what it looked like, how it appeared as far as the terrain goes. So when Garrett was looking for the kid, and he was hot on his trail in late 1880, they suspected that Billy and his guys may have been at the cave. So Garrett and his posse actually went over to Los Portales to the cave. And of course they found it empty minus a couple small cabs and, some supplies and whatnot. So yeah, Garrett was frequented or was known to frequent that location as well. There's actually an unsubstantiated source that I've been looking into for quite a while now, and it's that there was a letter written in Spanish signed by Billy, Charlie Bowdry, and Garrett to where they were trying to stake claim to some land right by the cave with intentions of going into business together. Now, I'm still trying to track down the original source and try to confirm this, but if that is the case, it's kind of interesting because it kind of goes back and supports the notion that maybe Billy and Garrett were in fact good friends, and just kind of adds a little bit more mystery to the whole story. But again, as of right now, I'm still kind of running that lead down, but nothing substantial just yet.
So Billy dies, never makes his cave into a ranch. There's pictures. Again, I urge you guys to join the epitaph so you can get these photos. But there's pictures there that there was some type of monument there. What became of the cave? Is there a monument there? Is there something that says that this was Billy the Kid's ranch?
So you'll see one of the New Mexico tourist signs, the big brown wooden signs.
Right.
It's located a few miles from the cave. It gives a brief description of it. So there is that. I don't really care for that because, again, it's not at the location. The actual site itself is completely unmarked. So last time I checked, the Lions Club of Portales owns that property, and they've got it fenced off, mostly to keep cattle off the cage, because that's unfortunately what's caused most of the damage to the structures itself.
Damn cows.
So there's really not a lot there to market. It's not hard to find if you know what you're looking for and you know where to look. But yeah, so after Billy, of course, Billy died in 1881. We had a guy that settled there and set up a beef contract type site at the location. His name was Doik Good, and he ran that for a couple of years, supplying beef to nearby locations. And then we had another gentleman that came by a few years later named Josh Morrison, and he actually set up a store, a one-room, kind of like a portable store at the Springs, and he would serve and sell to travelers that were going back and forth up the trail and whatnot. And when the railroad bypassed that location to go over to Roswell in 1899, he actually picked up stakes, moved a store a few miles over, and that's now what we have as the town of Portales. So, those caves did operate for quite some time and served the people in the area. There were 2 watering springs that came up. If you look into the history of it, around 1900 to probably 1930s, it was kind of a popular picnicking spot. The locals would go there because there was a shallow pool, so to speak, that the kids would play in. And it was kind of a really popular attraction for quite a while until probably around the 1950s, with irrigation ditches and whatnot. They started pulling water from it. And, of course, it's been dry for, decades now. I first went to the site in 1993. And it was, of course, dry as a bone then. There was a little bit of a windmill that was there that they established probably around the turn of the century to help pull water and whatnot. It's since been tore down. So, yeah, there's not a lot there now. There's no sign of water at all. There are quite a few snakes there. So if anybody ventures out to that location, I would do so with caution because there are a lot of rattlesnakes in those caves and in that area. I've been back 3 or 4 times since, and it's pretty much untouched. It's just, unfortunately, the caves are slowly wearing down just through natural erosion. Fortunately, like I said, they did put up a fence around us, so that's keeping the cattle off of them. I've never been brave enough to go actually inside the cave. Supposedly there's 2 separate rooms up in there, but I have a pretty powerful fear of snakes, so I'm not quite brave enough to go up in there, but I've certainly been around them, and it's just amazing to think that the kid hunched up in those and spent the night there, as well as a number of other people. They've done archaeological digs around there, and they're able to confirm as far back as the 1500s there were explorers that were going through there, and Native Americans that camped out there and left trinkets there. Supposedly Coronado and his men actually stayed there for a short time during their migration west. So there's a lot of history there. It's not just Billy the Kid related. But of course, that's why we're here today, and that's what draws me.
Well, if you're wondering who we're talking to Josh Slatten. He wears just about every hat there is at the BTK Coalition. But that's not true. What is your title, official title?
Yeah, official title is executive director, but, I've got a good group that works with me. My brother does the other half. He handles a lot of the business stuff. Jeremiah, of course, we've got James Towns, and everybody knows James. He runs our YouTube channel, Chasing Billy, which I'm going to give that a cheap plug. Like and subscribe to that, because we do a lot of really good Billy the Kid related history stuff there. Things when I go to a lot of these historic sites, we film them and we air it there. So check out Chasing Billy on YouTube if you get a chance. So we have James that runs that. We have Doss that does a lot of our research. We have Ann over in London that helps us out with a lot of other things. So yeah, we've got I'm sorry, she's going to kill me. I just said that wrong. We've got Nell over in London. We've got Ann in Florida. Sorry. So yeah, we've got a lot of things going on, and it's not just me. There's 6 or 7 of us, and man, we're so busy that I can't keep up with anything. I've got so many projects and writing projects and everything going on. So yeah, anybody that wants to help out, please do so, because we're always looking for free help and free labor.
I mean, you finally got me to see who Doss Boot is. For years, we've seen each other on Facebook, and then for the first time ever, I got to see what he looks like. So if you're listening, Doss, nice to finally meet you virtually. Let's talk about, real quick, you sent me a children's book. I cannot wait to read to my granddaughter. Tell me about the Billy the Kid, the children's book. Why did you feel that it should be a children's book? Tell us about that. And is the book still available?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny story behind that. So yeah, I like to brag that I have the #1 selling Billy the Kid children's book in the world right now. It's also the only Billy the Kid's children's book in the world right now. But yeah, I set out probably 2 years ago, and I noticed I had a friend of mine that had a small child, and they asked if there was anything related to that, and I got to thinking, and there wasn't. So, I wrote a children's book. I reached out to a good friend of mine named Angie. She's on Facebook. You see her from time to time, and she did the illustrations for me, and we put it together. It's we follow very loosely the story of Billy the Kid as far as the historical events are there, but we of course intertwine. Billy runs into a friend of his who's an alien from another planet, and they go on a lot of adventures together, because I kind of wanted to tie in the New Mexico Billy the Kid history with the Roswell alien crash landing history, kind of hit both of those genres at the same time. So it's a really cute little book. I'm biased, of course, but I think it's a really good story. It has a really good twist ending that sets up for a second part, which I've already written that. I just haven't got that published yet. The artwork is amazing. Angie is incredibly talented. It's a very unique style that she has. It's a great little book. It also does something that I've never seen another children's book do, which I'm pretty proud of, is, believe it or not, we actually cite our sources, and there's footnotes in the back of the book. As crazy as that sounds for a children's book. I'm pretty passionate about research, and I'm pretty passionate about getting things right and citing your sources. We have too many pseudo historians out there that don't do that. And if you can't cite your sources, it's hard to confirm things. So me and James were joking on the phone one day about how every single sentence should be cited for authenticity. And I just said, well, heck, I'm going to cite a children's book. And I did. So every single page of the children's book, if you go to the back of it, I spend about a paragraph or two talking about the history that inspired that page, the true story about what happened that correlates with what I'm talking about in the story. So it's kind of a unique little book. I sell it on Amazon. It's sold on our website. If you order it on our website, I can, of course, autograph it for you and send it to you. If you order it off of Amazon, of course, that's a different story. But yeah, it is readily available. It's gotten some really good reviews. And like I said, it's the only book out there that talks about Billy the Kid, the only children's book out there, I should say. It's also for sale in the Fort Sumner Museum, at that museum on the main strip there. It's for sale at the Chamber of Commerce building in Fort Sumner as well, along with our journals. So yeah, go pick up a copy if you can, and read it to your kids, because that's really what it's all about. Is, and Mike, you know this as well as I do, that some of this history unfortunately is kind of dying out. The generation that is really into this is getting older, and we've got to find new ways to get the younger generation and kids interested in this stuff, so the torch can be passed on, once guys like me are done and other similar people are done. So that was another goal that I had, is I wanted to find a way to connect to younger audiences, and hopefully this does so. So we'll see.
Right on. Well, if you want to find out Josh's article, it's called "It Looked Like a Hideout. Billy the Kid's Proposed Ranch Was Nothing But a Cave." You can find that at the Tombstone Epitaph in the April 2024 edition. And again, we urge you to join the Epitaph at tombstoneepitaph.com and become a member or a subscriber and get the newspaper. And then join the BTK Coalition at btkcoalition.com. And you can join. I joined, $35 a year. You get the journal, you get their journal that is really great, fantastic artwork. And then there's a store in there that if you love, including the book, but if you loved Billy the Kid and you want to shout it out to the world that you love Billy the Kid, well, the best way to do that is with some swag. And they got shirts and hoodies, and you can show everybody, during your day that you're a huge Billy the Kid fan. You'll find out that when you shout that out and let the world know that you're not alone. There's a lot of us that love Billy the Kid. I also want to thank my friends at the Wild West History Association at wildwesthistory.org. I urge you to join that one and get the journal 4 times a year. You can get it in a hard print or in a deliverable through email like I do, in a digital print, and you can look at it at any time on your mobile device or your Mac or laptop. It's just good stuff. There's a ton of good stuff out there. And Josh, I can't thank Josh enough for having saying yes to the interviews. He's a great guy. He's a busy man. He's a LEO. I'm a huge fan of law enforcement. My wife and I are back the Bluers, so we appreciate everything he does. Anything before we go?
Man, just thanks for having me on here. Thanks for giving me the shout out every week like you do. It means a lot, brother. I hope we can always return the favor and support you guys as well any way we can. Stay tuned. Follow us on Facebook, and like I said, our Chasing Billy channel. We've got a couple celebrity interviews coming up in regards to the Billy the Kid show on MGM. So I'm excited about that. James does a really good job with those. We're going to make another announcement in late September, actually the last weekend of September. We're putting up another monument at a Billy the Kid related location. So we'll be announcing that real soon. I'm very excited about that one. It's pretty near and dear to my heart for personal reasons that we'll get into later. So yeah, we've got a lot of exciting stuff coming up. Our next journal's in the works. I've got a book on John Poe that's in the final phases with the editor right now that'll be out in the next 3 to 4 months, depending on how that goes. So yeah, man, we've got a lot of stuff going. Just continue to follow us on Facebook and keep up with you, Mike, because you seem to do a pretty good job of kind of keeping everybody in the know of what we're doing as well. So man, we really appreciate that.
Well, and I appreciate the listeners. If you're wondering about me, you can find Cochise County Travels on Facebook and Instagram. And the Wild West History Association is now on LinkedIn. So if you're on LinkedIn, you can head over there, and I'm posting content every week, sometimes twice a week. So if you want during your business day and you're like, I want a little break, read a little history, Wild West history, go over to the Wild West History Association on LinkedIn. You can find us there, and I'm posting different kinds of content that you're going to see there that you might not see anywhere else. Of course, you can find me, my podcast. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Cochise County Travels. You can find me on YouTube. This podcast will be on YouTube here shortly. There's tons of podcasts that are audio-only podcasts on YouTube. So if you have somebody who's older and maybe doesn't understand how to get to iTunes or Spotify but likes a little Western history, head over to YouTube, and you can find Cochise County Travels there. Of course, you can find me on podcasts through Spotify, iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, just about everywhere that you listen to podcasts. And just as a side note, my friend John Bannicky. John has been listening nearly since day one. And John is a personal friend, and he sends me messages through Facebook and on every podcast and everything that I do. I want John to know how much I appreciate him and how much he's been there since the very beginning and what a great friend he is. And I can't thank him enough for following along and commenting and sending words of encouragement about the podcast. So John Bannicky, if you're listening, this one's for you. I can't thank you enough. As always, to everybody out there, safe travels